What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Red and Gold Standard podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn. We are here with another episode breaking down day one of 49ers free agency. Before I toss it over to Matt, if you guys are tuning in on Twitter, head over to youtube.com/49ers Hive. Join from there so we could see and interact with your thoughts. We're not ignoring your comments on Twitter. We just can't see them. youtube.com/49ers Hive. It'll be scrolling on the bottom of the screen for the first couple of minutes. While you're there, hit like, hit subscribe. We appreciate it. Now they got all that out. Matt, how are you doing? It feels like it's been forever.
It has been forever. It's been the slow time of year, so not a lot to really go on. But, man, when it takes off quick. And today has been one hell of a day, both for the 49ers and really the NFL in general. But, since we're a 49ers-focused podcast, we're going to get into a lot of what this means for the 49ers, and not just the 49ers moves necessarily, but other moves around the NFC that I really feel on the whole strengthen the 49ers going into 2023.
Yeah, it's been a crazy day. My phone at work all day was just blowing up. Obviously, the biggest news, Javon Hargrave to the 49ers, strengthening that interior defensive line. He was a stud for the Eagles, and the 49ers gave him a 4-year, $84 million contract. I don't have the particulars in front of you right now. I just had them, but I lost them. I believe something like $40 million is guaranteed. What do you make of this signing, and were you as surprised as I was?
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't have them on the 49ers radar. I figured they would kind of, build around some mid-level free agents, maybe retain some guys, but this was a splash signing. It came really early in the free agency period, and, I mean, the rich get richer. It's going to be incredibly difficult to block this 49ers defensive line at this point. They still probably need to add something to the defensive end position, but hell of a signing. And, on some boards, he was the number one free agent out there. So the 49ers make a splash signing for all of those that, hey, the 49ers don't do enough. John doesn't do enough. Kyle doesn't do enough. How do you like him now?
Just amazing stuff. And yeah, the contract is even more impressive in my opinion. He had the $23 million signing bonus. Like I said, $40 million in guarantees, 2 void years, and the cap for 2023, which is obviously kind of the biggest hurdle in all of this, $6.6 million. And that's per Doug Kaid, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Just ridiculous. So it really is impressive. Parag strikes again. And the 49ers weren't done after that. They also brought back their own defensive lineman. His name is escaping me at this moment.
Kevin Givens.
Thank you, Kevin Givens.
Yep.
And they later in the day signed Sam Darnold, quarterback Sam Darnold, who they were rumored to be interested in trading for a couple of years back, if we all remember, when he was still with the Jets. What do you make of either signing?
I think Sam Darnold is just a good third quarterback option. Nothing really to say there. I know some people were starting to break it down. Look, this is what he does well, and this is why the 49ers signed him. I think that's taking it a step too far. I don't think the 49ers signed him with him playing in mind. I think it's just insurance, just in case. We know that Brock Purdy took a little extra time to get that surgery done. It is the internal brace, so he should be able to throw in 3 months. But if for whatever reason he's not ready to begin the start of the regular season, at least you have an NFL level veteran that's there, to back up Trey Lance, and one that can theoretically run a Kyle Shanahan type offense better than what Josh Johnson was able to do when he was called upon. So it's in terms of Kevin Givens, I think that's a nice depth signing, someone who's familiar with the system, someone who is another body to take up space. But again, you hope that he doesn't have to see any significant minutes. I think that, it's great. Good price, $2 million, no big deal. Similar to what they got with Colt McKivitz, right? You get depth for a guy, doesn't break the bank. It allows you to go out and stack around that player without taking up too much space, but they are familiar with the system and kind of make that transition easier. I think overall, though, I think this is going to be the beginning of the end for Javon Kinlaw in San Francisco. I don't know how you read the Hargrave signing as anything but that, given that you have Eric Armstead under contract. You've had other guys make a significant impact, and it just seems that there's just too much start and stop to Javon Kinlaw so far. This Hargrave deal, I feel like, puts the nail in the coffin for that. And whether they try to trade him or whether they just outright cut him when it's more convenient for the cap, I think that a move with Javon Kinlaw is probably coming sooner rather than later.
100%. And it kind of is this reading the tea leaves as them saying, we know we messed up on this pick. It didn't turn into what we thought it would. The injuries were just far too much for him to overcome. So we're going to go out and make a splash signing and just kind of live with our mistake, which is nice because we've seen in the past, maybe not to the high level draft pick of a Javon Kinlaw, but even, Jalen Hurd, the not free agency, but high splash trade in D Ford. These guys were injured. Even you can go to Jerick McKinnon if you want. These guys were injured, and the 49ers reluctantly and maybe a little hard-headedly stayed by them and waited for them to turn into something. Seems like they're willing to cut their losses, not literally because Kinlaw's still under contract for another year, but metaphorically cut their losses with Kinlaw, move on to Javon Hargrave, who at this point is definitely a much better talent. And Matt, you say it a million times, the best ability is availability, and Javon Hargrave is just way more available than Javon Kinlaw is. So
yeah, there was a lot of hope with Kinlaw after he had the second knee operation, and it just seemed like, oh, the doctors say that this is going to be the one. We got it fixed. Everything looks good. And then it just continued to have the same issue over and over again, and he just wasn't available. And at that point, it's like, well, we can't count on you at this point, right? We've seen it with Jimmy Garoppolo, who we'll talk about in a little bit, and others. It's just, if you can't be out on the field, what good are you to the team? And I think that the 49ers move for Javon Hargrave, again, on some people's board as the number one free agent out there, just speaks volumes as to what they think the future of Javon Kinlaw is in terms of his reliability. We saw, in the later half of the season, particularly in the playoffs, right, when you got to the better teams, the other teams were able to limit what Nick Bosa was able to do because there wasn't that other disruptor. There wasn't that complementary piece. Now you have Javon Hargrave, who's coming off a double-digit sack season from the interior, that you get to stick next to Bosa. You stick next to Armstead. You hope that Drake Jackson takes the leap in year 2, and you have a 49ers defensive line that's going to wreak havoc and be really, really hard to, block against. And so I think that they just realized Javon Kinlaw, there's too many miles on the tires already. There's too much inconsistency with how much he's able to play because of the health, and they had to make a move. I mean, this shows me that they're in for the next 2 or 3 years on a legit Super Bowl window while they have these two quarterbacks on their team in Trey Lance and Brock Purdy under rookie deals, to where you can go out and, make those big splash moves in free agency while you have the cheaper quarterbacks. So they have to go all in now. I think it's, we're getting to the point where it's Super Bowl or bust. I think Kyle Shanahan been to the NFC Championship game a couple times, lost the last 2 years, went to the Super Bowl, lost in the Super Bowl. I think he's really hungry for that ring. I think that John Lynch is hungry for that ring. And I think that they're putting all their cards on the table to make a real serious run at it.
Yeah. And look, I know it's not because of this, but to me, it's like some of this has to be like, I'm imagining Kyle and John sitting in a film room watching Javon Kinlaw's tape from that NFC Championship game. And look, take with a grain of salt. I know the game was out of hand for most of the game because of what happened with Brock Purdy and everything. But Javon Kinlaw was getting thrown around like his name was Mike McGlinchey out there. A man of his size and stature should not be pushed around, bullied as easily and often as he was. He was giving up on plays left and right.
That was a big one. That was a bad look. And I know that some people were trying to defend it. I couldn't defend it. It just looked like the effort wasn't there. And when you're getting manhandled at the size that Javon Kinlaw is, it has to be an effort thing. It can't be a body thing. We know that Javon Kinlaw is super strong. It just seems like that he didn't want to be there at certain points of that Eagles game, and there's no excuse for that. And I think that showed the team a lot. And one thing that we know about the 49ers is that they're big on character. So if you're not going to get out there and hustle, I mean, then it's time to go. And unfortunately, it's looking like Javon Kinlaw's time with the 49ers is coming to an end.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely don't make this signing if he panned out into something they were very impressed by. So we'll move on from that, but extremely excited for Javon Hargrave. It's almost like getting DeForest Buckner back, maybe not to that level, but think of that 2019 defensive line, Armstead, Buckner, Bosa, D Ford at times. Now you're going to have Bosa, Hargrave, Armstead, Drake Jackson. I mean, it's just really, really exciting. And hopefully the 49ers are able to kind of duplicate that success. Um, Anything else on the additions before you want to get into the departures?
I'm just really excited. Javon Hargrave, the way that they structured the deal is another one where it just looks like Parag's working his magic. I think that it's just exciting. And I know the 49ers are tied to another couple of players. Trey Herndon, I think, is one name that we've been hearing a little bit. I definitely would look for them to also, speaking of departures, which we will in a second, they really need to work on their offensive line. There's a big market for Jake Brendel. I think that they're looking maybe in the 8 to 11 million range, which is a lot for somebody of Jake Brendel's caliber when there are people out on the market that the 49ers could go after. There's still work to do, right? This is a splash signing, but the 49ers definitely need work overall, particularly on that offensive line. I'd like to see them go a little further. And then the last thing is there's rumors or reports out there that the 49ers have asked the representation for Emmanuel Moseley to allow the 49ers to match any offer that's coming his way. It looks like they really want to keep him coming off of an ACL tear. I'd really like to see Emmanuel Moseley return. He's been big for this 49ers team. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited at the future, but I still think that there's more to come.
Yeah, definitely. The biggest news as far as departures definitely has to be Jimmy Garoppolo leaving, going to the Las Vegas Raiders, reuniting with his old coach from New England, Josh McDaniels. Per Mike Garafolo, Raiders signed Jimmy Garoppolo. I believe it was like a 3-year deal. I thought this tweet had all the details, but they do not. My apologies. I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Jimmy's deal was 3 years, 67.5 million, and I think it was like 34 something guaranteed.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought this was an interesting signing. Even more interesting, they had somebody who I thought they were going to maybe use as a bridge quarterback, see what he had in Jarrett Stidham, who in my opinion looked impressive at times. But they decided to go with Jimmy. Jarrett Stidham went to Denver. Any thoughts on that signing for the Raiders?
The Jarrett Stidham thing was very interesting to me. It looked like Jarrett Stidham could not get out of town fast enough to go from a situation where, given Jimmy Garoppolo, you probably weren't going to start, but now you go to Denver and you're definitely not going to start. That speaks volumes to me. I know Jarrett Stidham was on the Patriots roster when Josh McDaniels was there. It seems to me like the bloom is off the rose with that relationship. So it's very interesting. In terms of Jimmy Garoppolo, given what David Carr said about his brother Derek and the departure in Las Vegas, about Josh McDaniels wanting a guy like a jugs machine, essentially, to throw the football, right? Like a guy he can tell what to do and he'll go out there and do it. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo fits that bill very well. Experience in Josh McDaniels' system from his time in New England, and not a guy that is going to freewheel too much. Jimmy Garoppolo is very systematic with where he wants to go with the football, and when things break down, it's not necessarily the best look. So in a system where Josh McDaniels is going to want him to throw the ball exactly where he wants to, I think that's a decent fit for Jimmy Garoppolo. He gets to play in an indoor stadium. That'll help his, relative lack of arm strength and the way that the ball kind of dies out of his hand at times. But then you have to wonder what's the future hold for Davante Adams. He's not just a deep guy. He can run patterns, but is this going to even further limit what Davante Adams can do? So overall, it's interesting, right? As 49ers fan, thank you, Jimmy Garoppolo, for everything you did, all that, best of luck to you. But did the Raiders get better? Did their quarterback situation get better? And if all you can show me is QB wins, which is what people are throwing out there, I don't know that the Raiders got significantly better with the addition of Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think it's just another situation of the Raiders just being the Raiders, to be honest. So Jimmy G, great for you. Go get your bag for the Raiders, and for Raiders fans in particular, buckle up. You're gonna have a interesting couple of years with Jimmy Garoppolo as your quarterback.
Yeah, it's funny to see Devontae Adams already kind of tweeting or posting cryptid things on social media. If you haven't contacted me in the last couple of years, don't contact me now. Guy seems like he's going through it, and I feel bad for him. He left Green Bay where he had a fantastic, at least working relationship with Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterback talents of all time, to be with his buddy from college and Derek Carr, who is essentially ran out of the building before the year's even over. And now Devontae's left kind of holding the bag. I mean, it's crazy, but that is what it is. Best of luck to Jimmy. Appreciate all of the games that were won with him under center. Brought this franchise back, helped bring the franchise back, maybe I should say. But we're on to Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. All right. And then also in departures, Mike McGlinchey got an insane contract by the by the Broncos. Something like $80 million with $50 guaranteed. How speechless were you hearing that?
It was pretty wild, and I'm glad that the 49ers didn't match that offer and didn't try to put that out there. That was pretty preposterous. It just goes to show what people on the outside of a situation, how they value something versus people on the inside. I think most 49er fans have been tired of Mike McGlinchey's, lack of pass protection for a couple of years now. If anything was going to be the last straw, it was going to be that picture of Micah Parsons essentially having him sideways in the air. I don't know. I just think that was a lot of money. That was a lot of money to give. Not as much as Lindstrom got. That deal for Lindstrom, $21 million a year for a guard, is insane. But McGlinchey got the bag. I think that I kind of felt like it was coming. The 49ers probably felt like it was coming too with the Colt McKivitz re-signing. It kind of spoke volumes as to what they were going to do with Mike McGlinchey. Even during the combine, John Lynch seemed kind of non-committal to Mike McGlinchey coming back. I think they knew that somebody was going to overpay. And I think that Denver is desperately trying to throw money at a problem to try to fix Russell Wilson. So that's how you get this overpay. He had been linked to the Bears earlier in the day. And I think that, that would have been a disaster for Justin Fields, particularly given Justin Fields' penchant for escaping from the pocket. That would have been a bad look for Mike McGlinchey. But I think Denver is probably a better fit, but they're going to find out real quick what we know, and that's Mike McGlinchey can be really leaky in pass protection. So if they were looking for him to be like a top flight offensive tackle to help Russell Wilson out, they got another thing coming. I do appreciate what Mike McGlinchey did. Again, we wish all these guys the best of luck, but I'm excited to get something different at this position for probably a lot less.
That's the main thing, right? My whole argument behind Mike McGlinchey, which I would love to get Mike back on here because Mike was telling us he's not going to cost as much as we think. He costs way more than I thought he was going to cost. I was arguing not to keep him at, $50 million with 25 guaranteed. He got 80. And look, part of this is probably due to the Broncos not having picks, and therefore they have to overpay to overcome not having those picks. But still, the amount of money that Mike McGlinchey got, there's absolutely no way the 49ers are going to be able to compete with that. I mean, their splash free agency signing that we just talked about, Javon Hargrave, who was arguably a top 5. Some people had them number 1 overall free agent, didn't even get that. And I understand it's different for a defensive lineman versus offensive lineman, but still, no thank you. I am 100% in agreement with you, Matt. They can go in the draft. They have a gajillion third-round picks at this point. Spend 2 or 3 of them on some tackles, and let's move on. And right before we went on here, we just got word from Rap Sheet that Jimmy Ward plans to sign with the Houston Texans. He's joining D'Amico over there. Did this surprise you at all, or were you kind of expecting it?
I wouldn't say that it was a surprise necessarily. A little bit disappointing. I think out of all the people that left, Jimmy Ward is the one that I wish would have stayed. I do feel that he had the most high level football left. And you just he was such a staple here. I mean, obviously one of the longest, if not the longest tenured 49ers still on the roster. He had been with us since he got drafted. I believe 2013 was when he got drafted. Just a overcame early injury issues to become a real stalwart in the secondary, and so versatile to be able to go from he was a corner in college, they drafted him, they converted him to a safety, and then when the 49ers needed him the most, he was able to go and play a really good nickel corner for them this year. He's the one, and we don't have terms for what he actually signed for, but again, it's one of those where you kind of saw the writing on the wall when the 49ers brought back Deshaun Gibson earlier in the day. You kind of thought, okay, is it's Jimmy Ward going to be gone, or are they able to make something work? I think that while we would like to keep everybody, that's just the nature of the beast, is that sometimes it's just not going to work out that way. And unfortunately, the one player that I wanted to keep more than the others was Jimmy Ward, and that doesn't look like it's going to be the case. And while we're talking about it too, it looks like the same could be said for Aziz Al-Shaair if his social media is any indication. So some players, some fan favorites are going to be gone for the 49ers. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's the business, and we just got to hope that they got something in the pipeline. Like you said, a lot of third round picks to throw at the problem. It looks like with some of these departures, there's going to be a couple more comp picks coming in. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely, especially with the McGlinchey signing. Maybe Jimmy and Hargrave cancel each other out, but the 49ers will still likely gain a couple of comp picks from their departures. Aziz Al-Shaair posted, I believe, on Instagram earlier, excited for the next journey, grateful for the past. Thank you, 49ers. So it's basically all but guaranteed he's going to leave. Maybe if he tests for agency, doesn't like what he gets, there's a spot for him here to come back to, but I would imagine he likely follows D'Amico to Houston, maybe even Robert Saleh in New York. Those are obviously the two easiest connections, but I don't think Aziz is going to come back, unfortunately, because he's one of my favorite players on and off the field.
I think he became expendable with how well Dre Greenlaw played this year. I think that it's really tough to pay three linebackers. So,
yep.
That I think he kind of became the odd man out, and a lot of it wasn't even just his play. A lot of it was the fact that he was a little banged up this year, to be honest. So with Dre Greenlaw playing so well, he just kind of became the odd man out, and that sucks, man. But there's still hope. It's not confirmed that he's gone. It's just based on his social media. It looks like that is kind of where it's headed.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned it earlier. I want to give credit to who I saw it from. I don't know if you saw it from anybody else, but 49ers Sports Talk tweeted out that they reached out. 49ers, have reached out to the representatives of Emmanuel Moseley, and they are asking for the ability to match any contract he's given. I would be ecstatic if they were able to bring back Moseley, Mooney, Ward, Moseley, Lenore. I mean, that's a solid 1 through 3 corner system. I'd be really happy with that, but we'll see what Moseley's going to get. He's coming back from that ACL. Maybe teams aren't willing to put the money behind that. Come back on a 1-year prove-it deal. And earlier this week, maybe it was this week or last week, I don't even know at this point, but it kind of came out that Robbie Gould was planning to test free agency, and the 49ers don't really expect to have him back. How happy are you to hear that?
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily happy. I have my love-hate relationship with Robbie Gould. Like, it just looks like he's going through the motion sometimes. He definitely does the thing where he warms up on, in front of the other team as like it's like a middle finger to them. I just think that at his age, it's got to be time to at least start thinking to the future. We've had good 49ers kickers in the past. Specifically, I think of David Akers, who was really good for us in 2012, either tied or set the NFL record in that week 1 game where he kind of dinged it off the crossbar and it went in. And then after that had a sharp fall off the cliff. And he was, later in his career too. I think there comes a point where we've seen it with a lot of these kickers. you'd rather get out a year too early than a year too late. And it sucks because Robbie Gould is money in the playoffs, but at the same time, you hope it doesn't come down to field goal kicking. There's a couple of good kickers in the draft that I think they're going to take a look at, particularly Jake Moody from Michigan. There's guys that can be had. And I think that what Robbie Gould is going to want is a little bit out of the 49ers price range at this point, given all that they need to kind of bring in. So I'm not happy that he's gone, but I understand that it's time.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Extremely grateful. Finished his 49ers career, never missing a postseason kick. Really impressive stuff. But if I'm being honest, he always just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know what it was. I'm very appreciative of him. The dude was more often than not
I'm
money.
pretty sure it was that when he wanted to go back to Chicago or whatever.
That started
it. But even that was kind of the whole thing. Yeah, and then he just kind of, I don't know, it seemed like he didn't really care that much.
Yeah, I got that vibe. He didn't want to do kickoffs. There was just a bunch of things that he just kind of, he never really seemed all in. He seemed like a paid mercenary. That's the vibe I got from Robbie. It was like, well, they gave me the most money, so I'm going to kick for them. But hey, you're a kicker. Like I'm not expecting you to lay blood, sweat, and tears out on the line. But I don't know. I'm happy for his time here, and I'm very appreciative. You'll just never see me rocking a number 9 jersey. Let's leave it at that. Billy Garza, our only hope is Purdy after his recovery. We don't know how he will be.
I still think you can't write off Trey Lance, man.
There's no way you could write off.
You don't know.
Yeah.
And anybody saying that they do know is lying.
Yeah. You can say we don't know about Trey, so therefore it looks like our main hope is Purdy, but I don't agree that he's the only hope. Especially with this surgery, they might devote all of their resources to Trey in the offseason. I mean, it looks like that's what they're going to have to do. So we'll see. We'll answer the quarterback tier towards the end of the show. I promise we'll get back to this. We won't forget it, Billy. You talked about earlier when we started the show, Matt, unless there's anything else on the 49ers related free agents. No, you're good. Okay. Other moves in the NFC that you feel strengthen the 49ers position. Did you want to delve into that?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Let's start first and foremost with the defending NFC champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, who are just hemorrhaging talent left and right. Their defense particularly has Hargrave obviously came to the 49ers. One of their starting safeties left town to go elsewhere. I mean, they're losing a linebackers. They're, this and this and that. It looks like, and it looked like it was a preemptive report from Trey Wingo that Aaron Rodgers was heading to the Jets, but that kind of feels like that's where that's headed. Kind of feels like that Jordan Love is going to be the starter there, so they get worse. Tom Brady's out of Tampa Bay. It looks like they're going to go in the direction of Baker Mayfield. So really, I mean, who gets better? The Cowboys are still the Cowboys. Dak Prescott has to prove a lot. I don't foresee them being anything special while Dak Prescott is their quarterback based on what we saw the last couple of years against the 49ers. I just think that, the 49ers get the top guy in free agency for their team, and everybody else in the NFC who is close to being a contender seems to be bleeding talent away. So it just sets up for the 49ers to be even better. And Vegas actually moved their line for the 49ers to be favored for the Super Bowl as soon as they signed Hargrave. So it's going to be interesting to see going forward. But it just seems like this is a year where if the 49ers stay healthy, even with the question marks at quarterback, the 49ers just look like they're going to be the best team.
Yeah. And to add it on to that, the NFC kind of taking care of itself for the 49ers. Earlier this week, within their own division, the Rams decided to trade Jalen Ramsey out of the conference.
The Rams are going to be 3-14. That team is going to suck. I mean, Jalen Ramsey gone. They cut Floyd. They cut who else did they cut? Or Quinn, yeah. They're shopping other guys. There's rumor on the street that, despite what they say, Matthew Stafford might be on the block. I bet you looking back at it, I bet you McVay and Aaron Donald are looking back at it like, man, we should have got out while the getting was good. But yeah, that Rams team is going to be horrendous. So I mean, that's the 3-year extension for Geno Smith, who I don't believe Geno Smith is going to ever have a season like he had this year. So you look at that and it's like, well, who's going to compete with the 49ers? I mean, the Seahawks, not really. Arizona is going to be terrible. There's rumors that they're shopping DeAndre Hopkins. JJ Watt retired for them. That there's all these steps that are being taken back by these other teams.
Yeah.
NFC looks like it's just going to be completely wide open again outside of the 49ers. I mean, the 49ers have to be the favorites in the NFC as it stands right now. So with a little bit of health, I mean, the 49ers easily should be one of the best teams. And they should be prohibitive favorites to win the NFC West. Absolutely. If anything else.
Yeah. Two things. One, the Rams only got a 2023 third round and tight end Hunter Long for Jalen Ramsey, which is wild to me. But number two, totally just slipped my mind.
I don't know. I think that the Dolphins saw what happened with Jalen Ramsey against Deebo Samuel twice a year, and they were like, "Nah, he ain't worth much more than that." So, but yeah, I mean, again, just everything in the NFC. Geno Smith, not 3-year deal for him.
Totally.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, you reminded me. You mentioned the rumors that the Cardinals are shopping DeAndre Hopkins. I've basically seen guarantees that he will be moved before next season starts. But I've also heard rumors, I forget from who, I shared it in the chat earlier this week, they might take a quarterback with their first pick. This new regime has no ties to Kyler Murray. I know they just gave him that massive contract, but there's the rumors that he's not a great player. He's not a studious player, whatever you want to call it. His attitude's not in. We'll see how that shapes out. New coach Jonathan Gannon isn't tied to him at all. So just thought I'd share that. The rumors are out there. Take them with a grain of salt. They are draft rumors, but Arizona is not looking hot in any way, shape, or form. And on top of that, like you mentioned, the Eagles are losing starters like crazy. I think I saw 7 of their top 8 players, as far as like the amount of snaps they played on defense, have either left, gotten traded, or are asking for a trade. So
yeah. So here's what we have. TJ Edwards went to Chicago, the linebacker. Obviously, the 49ers got Hargrave. Their safety, Marcus Epps, went to the Las Vegas Raiders. And then they still have Fletcher Cox, James Bradbury, CJ Gardner-Johnson, and Kazir White, who are all set to become free agents. And then the guy that you're talking about who requested a trade is cornerback Darius Slay, who's in the final year of his contract and doesn't want to renegotiate. So, I mean, this is a team that's just absolutely going to hemorrhage the talent on the defense that got them to be the number 2 defense in the NFL and really got them to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, they're definitely going to be taking a step back. There's no doubt about that.
In addition to already losing both offensive and defensive coordinator. So, man, they're talking about getting plucked after one season of success. We thought the 49ers had it bad, but nope, they got it bad after 1 year. Didn't even win it all. And not to sound petty, but I don't believe any of their coaches that were plucked were minority coaches. So they're not going to get that extra third round pick like the 49ers have been able to generate year after year after year. It's a dumb rule, but hey, take advantage of it while you can, because I appreciate the picks, obviously.
I know the rule started out with the best of intention, but you can't help
course.
but look at the 49ers and go like, yeah, they're definitely gaming the system here.
Yeah.
They're definitely taking advantage of what's going on. And yeah, like you said, even with the 49ers, the rich are going to get richer. I mean, with McGlinchey gone, with Garoppolo gone, I know that they brought in Hargrave, so that's going to cancel one of them out, but they're looking at another comp pick for one of the guys leaving town. So depending on what they bring in and the level of free agency and the contract, there's more comp picks coming from them. And again, like we said, it's just the 49ers seem to do things better than everybody else in terms of making up for those deficiencies, for coaches getting plucked away, for players, leaving. The Eagles, off the back of their NFC Championship run, are just getting absolutely decimated.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the players, but then also obviously D'Amico, gosh, totally the one. His name totally slipped my mind, but he ran Carthon, who went to become Tennessee's general manager. I believe there was one more, I could be wrong, but they're already going to get these additional picks because of these minority coaches and executives going on to lead other organizations. So they're taking full advantage of it, and there's no complaints there. I'm not complaining about it. It should be celebrated, obviously, but I just think, in my opinion, it's a kind of dumb rule. Obviously, well intentioned.
Yeah, Ian Sharp says Eagles lost coaches as well. The point is they don't fall under the Rooney Rule hires where you get comp picks for them.
Right.
That's what the difference is that even though the 49ers are losing these coaches like D'Amico Ryans and they're losing player personnel director like Rand Carthon, they're getting something in return for losing those people where the Eagles are not getting that.
Yeah. Before we get into the next portion, I just wanted to say I have been so eager to see a 49ers quarterback like leave this team and see what else they do. I remember when Colin Kaepernick was like that last year under Harbaugh, or it wasn't even under Harbaugh, it was under Chip Kelly, where everything was so weird. And then I remember thinking like, wow, I'm really eager to see him with another team and how he does. It had been that long. And now we get to see Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, he's going to Las Vegas. I'm eager to see what he looks like there. Are they going to try and have him pass the ball deep? Are they not? How's Devontae going to work? I mean, he's got arguably the best receiver in the NFL now, so we'll see how that shapes out. I just wanted to get that out there. Any other thoughts from just day one of free agency in general?
I think it really broke the 49ers way in terms of where the pieces went. Obviously, they have a lot of work to do, particularly on the offensive line. That's the one area where I thought that they got obviously worse because you don't have anybody to kind of take over for Mike McGlinchey in that regard. And then the Jimmy Ward signing kind of hurts too. You're hoping that Samuel Womack can kind of make a difference in year 2 and come out and play a lot better than he did in year 1 so that it kind of lessens that sting. But with the way that the 49ers went about what they were doing with Javon Hargrave and the way that everything else kind of broke in terms of the NFC in particular, I feel like the 49ers just really got in a closer position to get to the Super Bowl. I think that they're sitting more pretty than they would be otherwise. So a really good day for them overall, and not even just based on the moves that they made, just league wide. It seemed like today broke for the 49ers for sure.
Yeah. 100%. It's really exciting. Brandon says they're in win now mode. I feel like it's crazy how they, for the past couple of years, it seems like they have been in win now mode, maybe more so when they traded for Christian McCaffrey, but it's like they're simultaneously in win now mode, but building the future at the same time by accumulating all of these picks. It's like, I saw somebody, I forget who it was, making the case for, the Rams going all in for their Super Bowl year, and they were aware that this kind of immediate downfall was going to happen because they did go all in. It seems like the 49ers are doing everything they can to go all in while avoiding that right after, downfall that the Rams are suffering through right now. So hopefully that's the case.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's as much of a half measure though, right? Like usually if you're hedging like that, you're really, I feel like instead of taking the Rams all in approach, or, like some of these other teams that have gone all in with the super team type of thing, I feel like the 49ers are taking more of the Pittsburgh Steelers mentality, where you carry a lot of good talent and you just keep yourself in the conversation. And then you end up getting to a Super Bowl or two when you acquire those real difference making type of talents. So hopefully that's the way that they're building this thing. I think that that's kind of what it's looking like. And given the quarterbacks based off of their rookie deals, I think that the next couple of years are kind of win now in terms of you don't have to pay the quarterback the big money yet. So the longer that they can go without getting that quarterback money out there, the better. It'll just help the team composition overall. And I think they're in a really good spot.
Yeah, 100%. It seems very natural. You know what I mean? It's like you said, when teams are kind of hedging their bets, trying to do both at the same time, it almost never works out. It seems like the 49ers are going all in, and it just so happens that they're getting these picks back for minority coaches, whatever the case may be, comp picks, and they're able to set themselves up for the future. And I mean, they haven't had a number one or a first round pick in the past 2 years. This will be the third year. So, I mean, it really is crazy to see how they've been able to sustain it, but they've been able to make do. And this team is just loaded to the point where there's only so many rookies that are going to make the roster every year as it is. You might as well go for quality over quantity. There's this tweet from NFL Rookie Watch, which I thought was funny. San Francisco 49ers now own Sam Darnold, who was the 3rd overall pick in the 2018 draft, Trey Lance, who was the 3rd overall pick in the 2021 draft, and are both expected to back up the last overall pick in the 2022 draft, Brock Purdy. Obviously, who knows who's going to back up who, but it's funny how the NFL works out, but that's just how it is sometimes.
It is. And I know some people are like, again, nonplussed at the whole Sam Darnold signing. Some are just like, oh, this sucks. Sam Darnold sucks. I will put it to you this way. If the 49ers had Sam Darnold as their backup to Brock Purdy instead of Josh Johnson, this team would have made the Super Bowl. Plain and simple. Because for as bad as you think Sam Darnold is, Josh Johnson was worse. They couldn't even throw the ball with him. So I just think that, this is more insurance. And again, the 49ers did not sign him with the intent to play him. So
exactly,
it's just insurance, particularly if that I think there's a rule proposal where there would be a 3rd emergency quarterback that you could dress that wouldn't count against your roster. And if that's the case, then why not have somebody like Sam Darnold in there?
100%. It's like Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch style. Hey, look, last year we needed a backup. This year we needed a backup to the backup this year and a backup to the backup to the backup. Like, we're not going to get put in that position again. No matter what happens, we're going to have somebody ready. And that's what I think Sam Darnold is. Joe Boy said we won't get a pick for Jimmy because he didn't get $25 million. I'm not sure if you're talking about, annually, but he got $67.5 million and 34 of that was guaranteed. So they'll get a good comp pick for him. They probably would get a 3rd or a 4th round pick, I'd imagine. Surprised Jimmy didn't get at least 25. I'm not sure if we're talking 25 annual, but he got a good contract from the Raiders. I would say it was about on par with what I was expecting him to get. The Geno market kind of messed it up. Geno's contract kind of messed up the market, but for Jimmy Garoppolo's production, yeah, that's fine with me. Was there anything you were expecting the 49ers to do that they didn't, or any position, I should say, to target that they didn't? Maybe the O-line?
Not necessarily on day one. That's usually like the big splash signings. I expect, in the second phase, like there's multiple phases to this, right? Like a lot of the big names come off the board right away. So I wasn't actually expecting the 49ers to do much of anything today, except maybe, see some restructures or, re-signing here, re-signing there, which we saw. The Javon Hargrave contract came out of nowhere and was a huge surprise. I would expect them to be more active in, phase 2, phase 3 of free agency. When you get some of the mid-level guys, I expect them to take a look at, continue to do your due diligence, right? Adam Thielen got released by the Minnesota Vikings. He's on the market and would be a good possession receiver for the 49ers if they decide to go that route, depending on his cost. Maybe they can get a low price flyer on somebody who wants to win, like an Odell Beckham Jr., something like that to supplement the room. They're definitely going to be in on some of these 2nd tier, 3rd tier offensive linemen. Maybe you can go out and look at a Caleb McGarry type guy. Joe Kelly is rumored to be on the trade market, and they have a dearth of 3rd round picks. I think that if they decided to trade one of those thirds, maybe 101 or 102 for Kelly, I don't think that would be a terrible move as well. Jake Brendel's still up in the air. So there's a lot of balancing left to do, but I think that the 49ers will be more active as time goes on. They made their splash signing kind of like they did with Mooney Ward last year, and I think they're going to kind of fill out the roster around that.
Yeah, well said. I think I would have maybe anticipated more offensive linemen, but the way you kind of broke it down makes a lot of sense. Those are kind of the follow-up signings of them to word it correctly. We do have some contract details for Jimmy Ward signing with the Texans per Adam Kaplan. 2 years, $13 million, 6.5 per season, 14.5 maximum, 7.25 per season with bonuses. So I thought he was going to get a little more.
Not a hugely expensive deal. Makes me wonder if there was just a little bit of bad blood based off of them using him at the nickel corner position.
I don't know if you
and he could be really ride or die with D'Amico Ryans too. Yeah. There's always that possibility as well.
100%. That I mean, probably likely, but I don't know if you caught any of his live streams that he'd been doing over the past couple of weeks. I hadn't seen much, but I had tuned in when I could have for, he was on for a couple hours at a time. He was very candid, very, very candid about not being happy with how Kyle Shanahan treated him. He went up to him one time and said, hey, I want to go back to my position. And according to Jimmy Ward, Kyle Shanahan told him, Deshaun Gibson's playing so well. It's either you play nickel or you ride the bench. You want to ride the bench. And, he was kind of astonished that he was told that. Take it with a grain of salt. Who knows if that's what he said, but
I'll just put it to you this way, though. Good for Kyle Shanahan for saying that shit, too, because coaches need to coach and players need to play. And we're too much in this mentality where players think that they got all the stroke. And let's face it, Deshaun Gibson was playing really well. And it's like the 49ers need a Jimmy at nickel corner. So, I mean, it is one of those things where, like, if you're just worried about you, then you can sit on the bench. If you want to help the team, we'll play you. And that's exactly what this is. So, I mean, Jimmy could be astonished that he said that. But, I mean, just looking at how Kyle would talk about Jimmy Garoppolo sometimes, I'm not surprised at all. So, good for Kyle for standing up to that. That's what coaches do. And if you're offended by that, then maybe this ain't the right spot for you. So,
yeah, agreed. I thought that it was funny when it came out, how much each team would have in cap space after the adjusted amounts and all that. He tweeted out, I think he put on his Instagram, like, hey, 49ers, like, don't count me out just yet or something like that. Let me get a bit of that. So clearly he wasn't completely opposed to coming back for the right price. I'm actually a little surprised that that's all he got. I actually thought he was going to get, roughly $9 million per year, but maybe his age, teams aren't willing to shell out that kind of money for a DB, even when as versatile as he is.
Could just be a situation, too, where being a nickel cornerback is a little more lucrative than being a safety.
That, too. Yeah, definitely. Going through some of the comments here, Mike McGlinchey was not worth that contract. Our defense is going to have to carry us again. I don't necessarily agree with that one. Kyle had enough of that honesty. I'm thinking Jimmy Ward preferred safety versus slot corner. He definitely said that, yeah. They need Caleb McGarry. I was thinking and helping the offerings name, but I guess we're not going to get no help in the office. How's it going to protect the quarterback? We need help in the offensive line. They still got a ton of picks.
They got picks. Again, this was day one of the tampering period. There's plenty out there. The 49ers are going to make moves. I think it's it's one of the things that I love and hate about the 49ers fan base. I love the passion. I love all that stuff. But at the same time, y'all ain't never happy and y'all ain't never patient. Like, it takes time, man. It takes time. Just let it marinate a little bit.
Let it play out.
Yeah, exactly. I think we had a guy who was asking about quarterback earlier.
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure that we get back to. I'll tell you right now, Trey Lance is probably starting the season because he's going to be the guy in training camp that's healthy.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like, we got a delay on the surgery for Brock Purdy, and yes, he can start throwing at 3 months, but then he's got to build up. How much time does he miss in terms of training camp, in terms of preseason games? Is he going to be able to get out there and be fully cleared? And then once he's fully cleared, if he hasn't played at all in training camp, you can't underestimate the amount of time that it takes to kind of build up. Was he so overwhelmingly good that he's guaranteed a spot like a Patrick Mahomes would be if he was injured? No. Like, let's keep it real. Brock Purdy had a magical run, but there's still more to prove. He's got to prove that he could do it again. And I think the injury comes at a bad time for him, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's over, right? What we hope is that if Trey Lance plays, he's fantastic. The hope is if Brock Purdy plays, he's fantastic. Whoever it is, that's what we got. But the fact of the matter is we got two guys that, the 49ers seem to feel good about, and that's all you can really, ask for. We'd like to see more of a competition, but I think that when the surgery got delayed because of the swelling, that kind of put Purdy behind the 8 ball, and I think that it's going to be Trey Lance's job, just because he's going to be the one that's available.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think actually Kyle Shanahan's probably very relieved, and I mean that and no sort of like he was happy his quarterback got hurt, but relieved in the sense that it took all of the decision and the pressure to make a decision off of his shoulders, because he's like, hey, I couldn't even pick Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, to start over the guy we just traded 3 first-round picks for if I wanted to, because he's not ready. So now he has to go back to Trey Lance, and he can almost, say, hey, there's no other choice for me. And he's, I'm sure, crossing his fingers, hoping Trey Lance does take that next step and takes off. That way he feels a little more, I don't want to say justified, but like he did make the right choice in trading the picks for him. And if he doesn't, by some stretch doesn't work out, he's still comfortable in what he has in Brock Purdy. And hopefully he's rehabbed enough up until that point to where they could make the switch back. I see Billy and others are talking about, but Sam Darnold, what's his role? Matt talked about earlier, emergency situations. I can't imagine he's going to be anything other than quarterback 3 once Brock is healthy. So,
yeah, definitely.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Joe Boyd says front office not drafted well with O-line. They haven't drafted terribly with O-line. Say what you want about Mike McGlinchey. He started here for, his entire, the 5 years that he was here or whatever. Whether or not he was worth that pick, he was probably a little overdrafted, but I mean, it's a hard position. And Aaron Banks looks like he's started to take off after year 1 of not doing well. And then they seem to find these other gems later in the draft. So for me, the 49ers, I don't necessarily think that they draft terribly. I just don't think that they've put a ton of high-level capital in them. The 2 guys that they did both have started for the team. So,
yeah. Also, Joe Boyd earlier, Jalen Moore and Colton McKivitz are not the answer either. I agree with you on McKivitz. I do not agree with you with Jalen Moore. I thought Jalen Moore looked very well this past year.
Yeah, and you got to remember, where were they drafted? Yeah. Those are late round draft picks, dude. Like, I mean, you're kind of just throwing a dart at a board and hoping that it hits a bullseye. I think everybody at that level of the draft, it's really a crapshoot. There's every player there has some perceived flaw, and you just don't know. And yes, there are guys in late rounds that hit, and they hit big, and they become superstars, but you just don't know. A lot of offensive linemen that end up being the best are undrafted guys. So it's such a crapshoot.
I think it's funny looking back to when the 49ers drafted Mike McGlinchey. If you all take a trip down memory lane with me, that was the flip the coin because they had tied with the Raiders for the exact same pick. 49ers won the coin flip, and they took Mike McGlinchey, obviously, who the Raiders were rumored to have wanted to take. The Raiders had to settle, I'd say that in air quotes, and take, I believe, Colton Miller. And looking ahead now, Colton Miller is, in my opinion, by far the better tackle. So the Raiders, and he actually got moved to left tackle, I believe, after they traded Osemele. So it's funny how things work out. The Raiders ended up getting the better player, but like you said, Matt, McGlinchey started a shit ton of games for the 49ers, and he's solid.
Right.
He's overall solid. They were able to win with him. Yes, he had, the Achilles heel at time, but he was good enough. He was good enough the 49ers could win with. He's not $80 million good. But
exactly. Darnold is healthy too. It's Lance for Darnold for QB1. No, Darnold's not getting QB1. Stop it.
No way.
Darnold's 100% right now with his Trey's readiness. I would take 80% of Trey Lance over 100% of Sam Darnold. Again, it's a depth signing. They don't want him to play.
Also, exit interviews after the loss to the Eagles, Trey said he'd be 100% cleared in about 10 days, and that was late January.
Yeah,
so
Trey's ready to go.
Yeah,
Trey's ready to go.
This is funny. Fans aren't happy unless every pick is a future Hall of Famer.
That's fact. That's facts. And they're tied to everybody, right? Like they need to sign everybody. Anybody that's rumored to be a free agent. Oh, the 49ers better go sign him.
Yeah.
Oh, they should trade for him right now. Oh yeah, let's just trade for him. It's that keeping up with the Joneses mentality. It's just like, I don't know. I can tell some of y'all have empty bank accounts because y'all just buy the first shit that comes online that you see.
Yeah, look, I think the 49ers did a fantastic job, arguably the best job of any team today. And they really plugged their holes. The defense was weak in the middle, particularly, especially, how they feel about Javon Kinlaw moving forward. I think this speaks volumes to that. And they were able to plug it with a literally massive plug in Javon Hargrave. I'm really excited for this. And Jay Elliott, I agree. Edge, tight end 2, center. These are positions that they are going to have to address either the rest of this week or come April when the draft comes. But I'm very confident in the fact that they address kind of the other main positions already in day one of not even for legal tampering period, So I'm happy with what we got so far.
Absolutely. And I think that, a lot of it's going to be, do they bring back somebody like Samson Ebukam or, somebody like that? Do they bring back, some of the other guys that are there? Somebody like Kerry Hyder or somebody like that to kind of fill out the edge. And you hope, really what you hope is that Drake Jackson takes that year 2 leap forward as a second round pick. That's a high value draft pick right there. And you want him to kind of come into his own. And if he can do that, then really what you're looking for is depth and your starters are kind of taken care of. So we'll see what the 49ers kind of look at it as. And again, there's no guarantee that they don't find somebody in free agency that they seem to like. I wouldn't expect them to try to go after somebody like a Leonard Floyd or a Bud Dupree or like a Yannick Ngakoue or somebody like that. I don't think that that's in the cards for them in terms of their salary cap situation. But bringing back one of the, again, in phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 of free agency, some of those lower tier free agents to kind of fill out your roster, those are the guys that I expect the 49ers to kind of go after and sign. So there's many options. It's no rush to kind of fill out that spot. I think they're set at defensive tackle. They got a ton of stuff, but I think they're doing well overall. And I would like them to see them more focused on the offensive line than the defensive line at this point. If I'm being quite honest, they got a lot of holes from. If it's not Trent Williams and maybe Aaron Banks, there's questions everywhere on that line.
Oh shit. You saying that right now, let me apologize to Joe Boyd because I totally got Jalen Moore confused with Aaron Banks. I was like, he played hello good this year. No, I had him confused for Aaron Banks. My apologies, Joe Boyd. You have a little bit of a right to be cautious about Banks, or excuse me, Moore. Jay Ellie says, any other options at DE that can wait a week or two? I'm going to say I'm very, very surprised we did not hear Charles Omenahue's name today. I thought he would be an early signing for one of these, pass rusher needy teams, which, let's be honest, most teams are in need of a cheap pass rush. Maybe the 49ers luck out and they're able to bring him back. I thought he was all but gone. I thought teams were going to be offering him a nice contract for his production, but maybe not. And maybe the 49ers are able to bring him back.
And that's where the 49ers can pick it up. Jay Ellie says he definitely pick up Floyd. But then Ian Sharp also rightly points out Floyd's not going to be cheap. And in this day and age, I don't think that you necessarily need a Leonard Floyd. At some point or another, you're committing too many resources to one spot. Listen, your top 3 of you can only play 4 at a time, right? And your top 3 out of 4 are Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, and now Javon Hargrave. And your 4th is a second rounder that you would like to see take a step forward in year 2. I don't think signing a star guy for, a lot of money is necessarily conducive for that guy taking that step forward. And I think it's a law of diminishing returns where that salary cap is better spent elsewhere, like protecting your quarterback when 3 of your quarterbacks really 4 of your you got 4 quarterbacks injured this year. So they definitely need offensive line help. There are free agents on the 49ers defensive line, but I do expect them at least 1 or 2 of those guys to bring back.
Just wanted to give a quick shout out to Rita Oak, who started doing her drawing Jimmy every day until he gets traded. It comes to an end today. So shout out to her. I saw her post got like 30,000 likes or something. I'm very happy to see her success because that was really cool to see as somebody who used to make graphics. I don't make graphics anymore. But I understand the time that goes into those. So shout out to her real quick. You mentioned, Matt, Odell Beckham Jr. earlier. The 49ers were among a handful of other teams at his private workout that he had, I believe, earlier this week. Do you think they actually have a chance at signing him?
I just think that coming off of an ACL injury, the second one to that particular knee, and I believe his 3rd one overall, I think that he can be had for less than what you would expect a player of his caliber previously would get on the open market. I think that he's going to sign a 1 or a 2 year prove it deal and try to re-up his value. And I think that the 49ers can take advantage of that. If they are indeed all in on a Super Bowl run, I think that's a way to go. You worry about maybe, spreading the football a little too thin, given the 49ers playmakers. But at the same time, if it's cheap enough and, it's bonuses and escalators and per game bonuses and, you're not guaranteeing for injury or whatever, maybe that's something that you can take a look at. I personally think that Adam Thielen would be a better fit depending on the contract, but he might be more expensive because he's a guy that's not traditionally injured. So I think it's a buy low situation on Odell Beckham right now, and I think that could fit for the 49ers if they decide to go that route.
Yeah. Thielen would be an amazing signing. OBJ, I was expecting him to sign for like a playoff run. There was all that talk about him going to the Cowboys. That turned into nothing. But it would be cool for the 49ers to sign him. And I know a lot of fans have said, we have Debo, we have Ayuk. He doesn't have to be better than Debo or Ayuk. He has to be better than Javon Jennings, which in my opinion, he would be right away. Thielen would also be better, than Javon Jennings right away. I pulled up Rita Oak's final Jimmy G graphic. Jay Ellie was asking. It's got quotes from all the players, coaches, and Jimmy. I don't know. Is this a Shawshank Redemption picture? I'm not sure exactly where this cartoon's from. It's usually
it is. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
that's one of my favorite movies. It's when Andy Dufresne crawls out of the pipe and it's raining outside and he reaches up to the sky. Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, Jay Ellie got it right away. Shawshank style. So yeah, shout out to her. Why did we get rid of Aziz? He is a unrestricted free agent, and it looks like he's going to test free agency. He said goodbye.
Yeah, it's not a matter of them getting rid of him. It's a matter of him testing the market and wanting to get signed for money.
I mean, he's clearly aware he'd get more money elsewhere. The 49ers have already paid Fred and Dre Greenlaw. If he were to stay, it would be for a significant discount, which I don't think he's willing to take since this is his first time being a free agent. Is there anything else you wanted to cover that we didn't cover? If you guys have any questions, send them at us before we wrap up. Matt, is there anything that I forgot to talk about?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I think the 49ers had a good first day, both by the moves they made and the moves they didn't make, and just the overall how Jason L said OBJ wants 20 million. No way they need to get him. OBJ is not getting 20 million a year. No way, no how. No team is going to pay him $20 million. So, people in hell want ice water. It doesn't mean they're going to get it. No, but overall, I think the 49ers had a good first day. They need to continue to make moves. That offensive line is very, very concerning overall. And they need, and whether it's through the draft, whether it is, free agency in the second part, I think what they do from here on out is kind of inform us of where they're going in the draft. There's every possibility they might move up. So, again, Ryan Kelly is rumored to be on the market as a center option. Caleb McGarry is a free agent. There are options out there. It's just going to depend on what they can do with the salary cap to kind of move things around and see where they go. But it's a promising start so far, and it's looking up for the 49ers in 2023.
100%. Joey says paying 3 linebackers when you play 4-2-5 65% of the time isn't ideal. That too. Yeah. And they probably feel very confident in both Demetrius Flanagan Falls and their ability to draft one and develop one. They've developed Dre, Fred, Aziz.
They seem to do a really good job at developing linebackers for sure.
Yeah. They need a center 100%. They'll get one. I'm confident they'll get one. Jay Ellie tomorrow. Who do we pick up? Matt talked about Adam Thielen, possibly a Zadarius Smith. I know he's been linked to the 49ers. It really just depends. I don't know if they can afford him now that they got Hargrave, but if he's willing to take a veteran incentive-based contract, maybe. But we'll see. We'll see. Most of it has been on the defensive side. So Jay Ellie also added Kelly, Jones, Bradbury for center. Yeah, hopefully
there are options. So just keep your eyes peeled. They're not done yet. That's for sure.
100%. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this show, breaking down day 1 of NFL free agency. We appreciate you guys tuning in. I know last time we said we wouldn't go that long. This time we won't go that long, I promise, between shows. We'll be back at it regularly, at least once a week until the season's back, and then we'll go back to twice a week. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow us on Twitter. Our handles are on the screen. Follow 49ers Hive, RGS Pod, so you never miss anything 49ers related. We're way more active on Twitter, so check us out there. With that all said, thanks for tuning in. Matt, you want to carry us out?
Absolutely. It's been a while, guys, but it's the start of the busy season. Free agency is here. The draft is right around the corner. We're all excited to see what the 49ers are going to do, as I'm sure you guys are as well. So keep coming back. We're going to bring you the content throughout the offseason that you know, that you love. Me and Zach just chopping it up, talking 49ers football. So thank you as always for joining us. And until next time, go Niners.